Welcome back. So today, we're jumping into something really interesting, a review for HBO's A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. And honestly, it's a total paradox. On one hand, critics are calling it absolutely perfect. On the other, they're incredibly frustrated by it. So how can it be both at the same time? Let's break it down.
Okay, let's not beat around the bush. We're starting with some seriously strong and, pretty blunt praise. Even with some major frustrations that we are definitely going to get to, one reviewer just kicked things off with this statement right here. It really sets the stage for the wild, conflicting feelings this episode brought out.
So, what was so perfect about it? Well, the main feeling from the critics was that this episode felt like a real, honest-to-goodness return to form for the entire franchise. You know, a callback to what made them fall in love with it in the first place.
Reviewers kept coming back to this idea of authenticity. They said the show just pulls you in and makes you feel like you're right there, living in this world. And that feeling, that immersion, that was the magic of the original series when it was at its absolute best.
This quote pretty much says it all, doesn't it? What's so wild is the pure surprise and relief you can feel in those words. A lot of people were, a little skeptical about any new shows in this universe. But this right here shows that feeling of, wow, the old magic is actually back.
So what's holding all this praise together? What's the anchor? Across the board, critics all pointed to one thing: the relationship between our two main guys, Dunk and his squire, Egg.
And yeah, the verdict was totally unanimous. The chemistry between these two is the one thing that makes the whole show click. In a massive world with dragons and scheming lords, their dynamic grounds everything. Kind of like Arya and the Hound did. The reviewers loved the real-sounding banter, the way Egg is this clever little wingman, and especially those quiet moments where you just know what they're thinking. One critic put it plainly: without this, the show just wouldn't work. Period.
All right, so building on that amazing central relationship, the episode also got a ton of credit for how fast and how well it brought in a bunch of new characters and plot points. It managed to expand the world in a really short amount of time.
First up, we meet Lionel Baratheon. And what an entrance. He shows up in this awesome tug-of-war scene that tells you everything you need to know about him right away. He's strong, he's loud, and he became an instant favorite.
And just as fast, we get our bad guy. The critics didn't pull any punches, basically calling him the asshole character. He's this arrogant Targaryen prince who immediately butts heads with Dunk, and you just know that's going to be a huge deal later on.
Then we get this great little moment that some people compared to the movie A Knight's Tale. Dunk is desperate for armor and meets this armorer named Steely. It's a fantastic character scene where Steely sees how sincere Dunk is and agrees to make him a whole new suit of armor completely on credit. Just a really well-done moment.
And this whole sequence just perfectly shows the struggle, The reviewers loved watching Dunk have to overcome all these hurdles just to get a shot at competing. He has to sell his horse, which is a gut punch of a scene, then he has to awkwardly get a new shield painted, and then he gets flat out rejected by a room of lords. He's only saved at the very last second when one of them, Bor, vouches for him. You really feel the pressure building.
Okay, but here comes the twist. With all of this amazing, perfectly executed stuff happening, the reviewers had one huge complaint that kind of hung over the entire experience.
The runtime. The episode is just over 30 minutes long, and that short length became the #1 source of frustration. The critics were loving every second, but they felt like just as things were getting good, bam, the credits rolled.
And this quote just nails the problem perfectly. The quality of what you're watching feels like a movie, but the format, the way it's delivered, just feels way too short. It's like someone is showing you a fantastic film, but only giving it to you in these tiny, bite-sized chunks every week.
So this is the real heart of the issue, this crazy contrast. Everything inside the episode, the acting, the world, the dialogue, it was all getting rave reviews. But the box it was delivered in, well, that was seen as just way too small. So with that major complaint hanging over everything, what was the final verdict? Did the short runtime end up sinking the whole thing?
Actually, no, which is kind of amazing. Despite how frustrated they were with the length, the final scores were super positive. We're talking a solid 8 and a 9 out of 10. In the end, it seems like the sheer quality of the story just won out.
And this detail is really telling. One critic straight up said that even though the length is a problem for the series, this episode itself was so good that they were actually bumping their score up from the premiere.
They made a deliberate choice not to punish the story for a formatting decision that was probably out of the creator's control.
So ultimately, the review leaves us with this really interesting question. The content itself is being hailed as this huge win, a return to what made the franchise great, but the format is leaving everybody desperate for more. So what are we really watching here? Is it brilliant television, or is it just a small piece of a brilliant film being doled out to us week by week?